Hello guys, time for another career advice from my office on Friday. Today let's talk about your portfolio. So on this channel I often repeat the advice that you need to create project, put them on GitHub in your kind of portfolio. But actually, what should be in your portfolio? What projects or project types? And do you even need portfolio these days? Is it that important? In this video, I will share my opinion. First, I want to kind of bust some myth or misconception. For many people, the word portfolio means a website, a visual website with a lot of projects. So they spend a lot of time in designing the website, structuring it, and making it pretty and professional. But actually, a beautiful website is important only for developers who would be involved in their future jobs in some kind of presentation tasks, like some kind of design, some kind of CSS, some kind of presentation of their code visually. And on this channel, the channel is called Laravel Daily, we're kind of talking mostly about backend developers or full-stack developers, but those who are focused on the code and not on the design. So if your plan is to apply for jobs that involve coding but no or minimal design tasks, then you don't need a fancy website. That will not be your primary weapon to get that job. So with that misconception aside, let's focus on GitHub in this video. What should be there on your GitHub? First, you need to understand the scenario from employer point of view. So they have job position and they have 50 candidates sending them their CVs, links, maybe portfolios, maybe something else, maybe videos, for example. And imagine how much time the employer or even HR person has to dig deeper into everyone's portfolio. So you need to understand that probably no one will take time or have time to look at all of the project in all of your big portfolio. This is not a game of volume and number of projects. In fact, for every different job, there may be different example, different portfolio item and project that would be most relevant for that particular job. The strongest of your examples for that particular position. So your goal becomes not to have biggest portfolio, but pick one project, one specific project, and describe it in a way, present it and package it in a way that would sell you as a developer as a perfect fit for that position you're applying for. So don't just send a link to your GitHub profile. Never. Send a link to one particular project that is the most relevant. Unless you don't have a project that is a perfect fit, then yeah, sure, send the full GitHub link. That said, of course, you will never know which example would be beneficial for the future job position. So what projects should you create? And that's when it may become a game of volume and numbers. So you have many projects or many functions within the same project on your GitHub. So experiment a lot with frameworks, design patterns, tools, put everything on GitHub without too much strategy, and then some of those examples would be beneficial for particular jobs in the future. This would basically mean the strategy of throw something at the wall and see what sticks. Another point is what happens, what is the process of actually job interview or before job interview. In many cases, the employers don't ask for specific projects, but instead they are interested in what you did exactly inside of those projects. They don't have time to analyze the full code base. They ask, for example, do you have experience with big queues with millions of jobs or something like that? And then you show the example and describe your experience then for that project, the challenges that you faced, you overcame. So basically you tell the story then. That usually happens during job interview, but even before the job interview, if you do your research, your due diligence about that company and about the job position in your CV, in your cover letter, you may emphasize specific function in a specific project. That kind of storytelling approach is much more human-friendly and would be faster for them to evaluate what you actually did. The code on GitHub may be just a proof that it actually happened, or could be a code base for follow-up discussions and questions during job interview. Of course, another way to look at GitHub is to have one flagship project or product or open source package for your community, like for example Laravel package. So guess how many clients Spotty have landed just because they have a set of packages on GitHub. And many Laravel employers I know, they landed a job at Laravel after being involved deeply in Laravel community, creating packages, open source projects, website tutorials, and stuff like that. So basically your goal is to become popular with your work. because this social proof, and not only from one person but from the community, is one of the strongest signals for employers like Taylor Otwell, for example, to consider you as a candidate. Of course, that's probably the longest and the hardest and the most risky part, because your project may not take off as expected. But as with everything in life, there are a lot of so-called overnight successes that actually happened silently over many years. So you may take that path to your GitHub portfolio as well. But everything I've just said seems like a lot of work, right? And that's not the only problem. For many developers, their past experience is in closed source, so under NDA or working with internal functions in some companies, so they can't really showcase that in public. And also many developers don't have enough time in the evenings on weekends to create open source project. That's totally fine. We all have lives, families, and other responsibilities and want to just live life and have fun instead of working even more after hours. That is fine. If you're in that position, it just means that your portfolio will not be your weapon when looking for job interviews. Then your ticket, your foot in the door, would be recommendations from your peers, ability to present yourself both in written form by email and verbally during job interview, and also general kind of good fit for that particular position. In other words, portfolio is not necessary these days. It's not a requirement. It's just a big plus, or in some cases a foot in the door to even get a job interview. But it's not strictly required. It's much more beneficial for designers or front-end developers because they can showcase their work visually. For back-end developers, it is tricky. Even for me on this YouTube channel, it's pretty tricky to show sometimes the things I want to emphasize because they're not visual. So I have to spend extra work simulating the situation and putting some kind of benchmarks or before-after scenarios about what happens on the back-end on the server in the database. Many scenarios are not that easy to explain in 1 minute, as I like to do it shorter, but it's not really easy. That said, the final note in this video would be that you do need to have GitHub profile which looks professional. I don't have any strict advice about what that professional means, but basically whoever looks at your profile, the profile should scream that I'm serious developer. So your full name instead of username, professional photo, your description with additional links to your other social links and external websites. So the potential employer should be impressed by what they see, even if you don't have a strict portfolio with code examples on GitHub. What do you guys think? Do you pay enough attention or a lot of attention to your portfolio on GitHub? And has it ever helped you to land a job? Share your stories in the comments below. That's it for this time, and see you guys in other videos.